Some things normalize across the NFL in week 3. We're going to react to all of it today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Week 3, there's some teams who maybe showed some life of being who we thought they were. There are some teams who are showing they may not be who we thought they were, and we're going to get into all of that here today on the show. But Joe, happy Monday to you, and happy Victory Monday to everyone who is celebrating here in week 3.
Yes, welcome to all. It's interesting, Kyle. 9 teams started the week 2-0. Well, we have 4 3-0 teams. The Bills haven't played, so we don't know their fate there yet. Mm-hmm. We started with 9-0-2 teams, and now there's only 3-0-3 teams. Of course, the Bengals haven't played yet. So, yeah, it was
the Jaguars.
Or the Jaguars. That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I guess one of those will at least change tonight. But yeah, it definitely felt like a week where, all right, 2 weeks are gone, and at least a lot of the teams looked a lot more like I thought they would this week.
I think that's fair, but you look at those 3-0 teams, everybody probably would not have been surprised if you said Kansas City was on that list. But the other names on that list, Minnesota, Seattle, and Pittsburgh.
I'm most impressed with Minnesota. I mean, this is a team with quality wins, man. Of course, they beat the Giants in week 1, but then they beat the Niners. They beat the Texans. Handle it, 34-7, Kyle Krabs. C.J. Stroud not playing his best football for sure. Darnold 4 touchdown passes. Houston couldn't run the ball. They got offensive line injuries during the game. And, Vikings, they swap edge rushers. Grenard goes out there and has three sacks. Did Hunter get one? I don't think he did. He didn't get any sacks. So it was like definitely your day if you were a Vikings fan. And talk about a team that, you felt like you got away from them early in the year with J.J. McCarthy going down. But the showcase opportunity for Sam Darnold is real. He's playing good football through 3 weeks, and this team has a lot of momentum right now.
Yeah, I think for sure when you consider how they are getting business done, this is one of the better coached teams in the NFL. And they've incurred their fair share of adversity with J.J. McCarthy going down. Yeah. And I know we had our questions about some stuff with the defense, but they added Stephon Gilmore to kind of help with that cornerback situation. The front, they have made it work thus far with the interior defensive line, and they've been able to get in some scripts where they get ahead of you early, and then the concern kind of goes away.
Yeah.
Because you can't really just lean on them and force them into heavier personnel groups because their pressure packages early are disruptive, as we saw the last 2 weeks, and they've hit some explosive plays.
They're the team that I'm most impressed with that's 3-0. I'd like to comment on Seattle. And I liked Seattle going into this year. I thought they were like one of my hey, I think there might be some teams sleeping on them. I've said that. But can we pump the brakes a little bit here? I know there's some great metrics out there about their defense, and the first ever defense since 1970 to hold 3 consecutive teams under 150 yards passing. We're talking about Bo Nix in his NFL debut, Jacoby Brissett, and Skylar Thompson. Can we be real? I like Seattle. I do not want to diminish what Seattle's doing because I like them, but come on, man. This is the 3-0 team for me that I'm like, I still need to see more.
I think the biggest concern with them is the offensive line. Obviously, Jacoby Brissett, or when they played the Patriots, Geno Smith was under a ton of duress in that game. He was pressured on, I think, over 50% of his dropbacks.
Yeah, overtime.
And Miami, in spite of falling behind by 2 touchdowns in the first 8 minutes of the football game, found some pretty good pressure on Geno Smith. Yeah. So I think that's the thing for them. I think they're probably a little encouraged with how the run game went, and they put together the big drive in the fourth quarter to kind of put the game on ice, and that included some chunk runs from Zach Charbonnet, and they're going to get Kenneth Walker back at some point from the injury that he's dealing with. So there's pathways for it to get better, but as I watched that game yesterday, that was my biggest takeaway is I think there's a lot of room for improvement up front offensively for them. And I would not, you don't have to give the wins back. You don't have to give away the metrics and the stats, but you feel good about installing a new defensive system and kind of working through what that install is like the first month of the season. So to get everybody on the same page, and you just happen to get good draws and playing quarterbacks to do it. And that's totally fine. But I think it's fair to point out.
Is it fair to point out that the Chiefs are 3-0, but they're flirting with it, brother? They are flirting with the complete opposite of that. And obviously Lamar couldn't get it done in that closing drive in week 1. Some help against the Bengals right at week 2 with the officiating, and then a little bit more help against the Falcons. I don't think Patrick Mahomes played his best game. I thought his ball placement was spotty all night long. I think the story for that game last night and the Chiefs getting to 3-0 was their run defense. And I thought it manifested itself on that last drive when it's 3rd and 1. They pound Algier, can't get a yard. They pound Bijan Robinson, can't get a yard. Talk about offensive line injuries. You could tell the Falcons without Dahlman and was it McGarry for a good portion of that game, and they couldn't run the ball like they needed to. Bijan Robinson, 16 carries, 31 yards. That's crazy, right? That's not a world that they can live in. Even though I think their passing game has shown some signs of life, which is very, very encouraging. I think there's a lot to be encouraged with Atlanta, but we're talking about the Chiefs as a 3-0 team. They're winning close games, but they've been on the right side of, I think, of a lot of good fortune to this point.
Yeah, I certainly think that Atlanta can use this as a game to build off of. It's unfortunate that you're sitting at 1-2. It's unfortunate this game you felt like it was right there for the taking, and you couldn't make the plays at the end of the game to do it. But I think you look circumstantially at what they had going on. I think they'll be fine. And from Kansas City's perspective, they're probably going to do this every single week, right? They're not going to play particularly good football. They're going to be sloppy, and Pat's going to put on the cape late in the game and make 3 key plays, and you're probably going to go 14-3, and that's just how it's going to be. And then can somebody bring the hammer down on you in the postseason? I mean, they're that team. And you and I experienced this team in the AFC East for 2 decades. And it's like, doesn't really matter.
Sleepwalking.
Questions. Oh, it's a down year for them. Oh, they only win 11 games this year. And then they hit the postseason. It's like, man, can't get them out.
Right.
Can't get them out. So
15th in scoring last year. Come on.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, they could sleepwalk. And look, for sleepwalking through 3-0, brother, I think all 32 would take it. All 30. So yeah,
September doesn't matter for Kansas City. They're playing with a different set of rules as far as the outlook of the season.
Who else is 3-0? Did we get to them all? Oh, Pittsburgh, the inevitable Pittsburgh Steelers. They just have a script, right? They play sound defense. They get some help with some situational moments. They don't beat themselves on offense the best they can, and they win football games. They're inevitable.
Yeah, I think this was a bit of a disaster game for the Chargers as far as people that left this game. Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt, Justin Herbert. Who's who, right? And they were already kind of down in personnel coming into the game. So it's one of those things. Their game script is pretty narrow for success. And then when you take away most of your impactful players, it's probably not going to work out too well
on the road. Yeah,
on the road. But credit where credit's due. I think Pittsburgh should feel really good about sitting at 3-0, and they're going to have a lot of divisional games late in the season to kind of figure out exactly where it's going to sort out. But I kind of feel like this is probably a team that should be having some big picture aspirations because they're at Indy. They get Dallas at home. Dallas looks like a train wreck.
Boy.
They get the Raiders. They get the Giants. They get the Commanders. They get the Browns.
Right, and they're already they're on 3-0 to the
right,
good.
You got three already.
Yeah, good to be the Steelers.
Just stick with Justin Herbert.
Fields.
Justin Herbert. Yeah, Justin Fields. I was looking here. I got distracted. Pittsburgh, they have 1 turnover in 3 games.
You
For all the
sometimes
questions about Justin Fields.
Right. There's still something to not turning over the ball, right? And getting turnovers and running the ball and being able to stop the run. It's still the same stuff, man. It's still the same stuff. All right, we'll see if the Bills can join the 3-0 club. They face the Jaguars tonight. But coming up on the other side of it, we're going to get into some of the biggest wins from the weekend that was across the NFL. Be sure to stick with us. Folks, game days for me are busy. I got 2 young kids. It's tough for us to get to the grocery store. It's tough for us to find time to cook. Well, thank God for DoorDash because they can handle all of that for us. DoorDash is a food delivery app that brings me food from my favorite local restaurants right to my front door. They'll bring me something from the gas station, from the grocery store. Hey, we need milk. DoorDash can go get that for us. I needed a 9-volt battery last week. DoorDash got that for us from CVS, and I didn't have to leave my house. The convenience is simply unmatched. So check it out for yourself. We got a deal for you here. Use our promo code LOCKEDFALL24 for 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. Limited time offer. Terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to game day greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. Must be 21 or older to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol only available in select markets.
Philadelphia on this list?
Boy, yeah, they're on this list, but you want to talk about results over process. Boy, I don't think Sirianni's coaching good football right now with the way he's managing these games, and let's get defensive struggle, and they're not taking the points, and then they go for the 1,000,000-yard field goal at the end and nearly give them a chance to win the game. I'm like, Sirianni, can you feel this out at all? It was tough. I mean, dude, it didn't have anything going. Like, they couldn't hit anything in the passing.
I think that underscores why this was such a big win for Philadelphia. To come out of week 3, 2-1.
Right.
Because if it's 1-2 and you're mismanaging the only thing you're really supposed to do, right? Because you delegate to the coordinators on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
It's a player-led team from an accountability standpoint. There's been a lot of questions. What does Nick Sirianni do? Well, game day management. And it's not going well.
Right.
So if you'd be sitting at 1-2 in that market with that fan base,
right,
with the way the last season ended for that team, that would not be a very fun place to be. This at least gives you a little buffer, right? It gives you a little bit of wiggle room. So to have, and really, let's be honest, Kellen Moore dialed up a great pick play to get Dallas Goedert free on the go-ahead score. And they hit an explosive run with Saquon Barkley midway through the fourth quarter. Their players made plays. I still think there's a lot of questions for Philly, but man, if they were sitting here 2-1 this morning, I'd kill to call into WIP and listen to the sports talk radio in Philadelphia because those fans would be head over heels all over themselves.
I spent the weekend with an Eagles fan, and we talked a lot about the Eagles and Sirianni, and he's done with Sirianni. So, yeah, they needed it. They needed that one in a big way, and obviously the first loss of the season for the Saints after mollywopping the Panthers and Cowboys. Interesting game for them. I mean,
they are who we thought we were type of situation
for this game, yeah,
because Philly's defensive front took it to them up front.
It's a good group, yeah.
And that was kind of the question with New Orleans that we had coming into the year was the offensive line. Well, they've looked great. They've had a lot of success in protection. Well, a little bit different story going against Philadelphia Eagles front. A Philadelphia Eagles front that couldn't convert pressure to sacks on anybody in the first 2 weeks.
Right.
A little aggression to demean on both sides on that one, probably.
So many big wins. How about the Rams coming back? Completely undermanned operation. I know that the 49ers have their own issues, but the Rams have more issues than any team. And what a gutty effort. To get the missed field goal at the end for the 49ers, short field, Stafford delivers the bomb down the field to Tutu Atwell. Sean McVay continues to get more out of his players than most coaches in the NFL. It's unbelievably impressive. And Purdy played good football game, right? I thought they played it wasn't their quarterback. The Rams won situationally, and that was a heck of a comeback for a team that was staring at 0-3. And at 1-2, do you feel like that's just a different script, obviously?
Yeah, 0-2 coming into the game. San Francisco has owned the head-to-head rivalry between the two teams. And you fall behind 14-0 in the first quarter. And you say, here we go again.
Right.
And credit to that Rams team for sticking in and pulling it out late. It was another one of those big win percentage swings in the final couple minutes. We've had a couple of those games this year.
Oh, boy, yeah.
And that was a needed win, huge win for the Rams. How about the Broncos over the Bucks in Tampa Bay? Some very funky, odd numbers with Sean Payton going against Todd Bowles in their respective careers.
Yeah, man, that's a good win for the Broncos. And man, Baker didn't play good ball at all in that game. But credit where it's due. I think Bo Nix, he had some very high level plays, not necessarily sustainable things, but getting out of some pressure with some runs and some moments throwing the football, and I think distributing the ball better than he has yet. I enjoyed watching Denver compete in that game, and I there was just so much more from the defense than I expected on the road.
Yeah, and then from a big picture perspective for Denver, with how ugly it looked early on, particularly passing, I think this is a big win for hopefully some momentum with a young quarterback, because you looked at the matchup and you looked at the skill players that Denver has, and you said, you go into Tampa, play against a pressure defense like Todd Bowles. I don't like your chances. And that's credit to Sean Payton and credit to the execution for Denver, what they were able to do.
We got to sneak in the Panthers, talking about big wins.
We also sneak in the Ravens too.
I wouldn't mind that for final thoughts, but okay. we got to talk about it. Kyle, how do you reconcile this? Is this just an example of
it's the fire Dalton? It's they will be better with Andy Dalton. I think you saw the energy that they played with, right?
Right.
Do I think they're going to make the playoffs? No. Did I think they had the talent this year to be like a 7-win team? I thought that was within their range of outcomes and possibilities. Bryce was bad. And I do not buy for a second the source war that's happening with NFL Network and ESPN and The Athletic and all these people that talk to all these people within the Panthers organization. And so says it's just a timeout. You can put him in timeout.
No,
if you have to put him in timeout, I think that tells you everything you probably need to know right there. Oh, they're going to trade him. Oh, they're not going to trade him. They still have big picture. No, you're just trying to preserve his trade value. I don't buy it for a second. They're done with him. They should be done with him.
Andy Dalton did this last year too, against Seattle. They lost the game, but you've now had 2 Andy Dalton starts where he throws for 300 yards, multiple touchdowns. He had 3 last night. And the team's just way better with Andy Dalton. And I think it is an indictment on Bryce Young and the limitations that he has and how he restricts the operation. And I don't know how you look at that. When I was sorting through this mentally going into the decision last week, it was all about the other 52 guys on the roster. I don't know how and what planet you can look at those other 52 men and say, you know what, we're putting Bryce back out there. There's no way. There's no way. That would be terrible.
Correct. And unless Andy gets hurt and Bryce is still here, then he'll get that shot. And if that manifests itself, Bryce better take advantage of it. Because if he doesn't, I think you're at like kind of what our first reaction was when it came out that they were going to do it, and said it was point of no return.
With the way that defensive structures are in the NFL and all the conversation that exists, a quarterback like Andy Dalton, right, is nice to have compared to.
He's going to sit here and take profits on every play.
Right, and that's a very hard thing for a lot of these young quarterbacks to do, which I'm guessing we'll probably spend some time on that.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas, Baltimore, on the other side of it, folks. Be sure to stick with us. Hey, NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com to get started.
I would just like you to take whatever hex you've put on Justin Tucker off. Take it off.
I wish I had the power to do that, but I think whatever reason I've been right about this. I don't have an explanation for you. But it's definitely a thing. Ravens winning though. Kyle, it's point blank period. The Dallas Cowboys are a soft football team. They're a soft football team, man. They're getting mollywopped at home. And this was a box score when you go back and look at it that reminds me of like Alabama facing Western Carolina. Lamar, 12 of 15 for 182 yards and a touchdown. They run the ball 45 times for 270 yards and 3 touchdowns, averaging over 6 yards a pop. I mean, the Cowboys' issues have been very obvious for multiple years with how soft their front is. And any team that can come in and do that, they're never going to play well against them. And we've seen it in the playoffs. We've seen it in the regular season. And that Dallas just structurally is a flawed football team. And this was a nightmare opponent for them. Big win for Baltimore, right? Baltimore staring at 0-3. That's not a good world for them to live in. They needed this. But Dallas, man, you're a soft football team, straight up.
Well, and you fell behind 14-3 in the first quarter. They're not a team that's constructed to do that, although oddly enough, they really can't run the ball all that well either. So like you kind of they're a team that feels like they have some identity crises on both sides of the ball that they're going to have to work their way through for a lot of this season. And if they don't, I think this could get pretty bumpy for them. And there's a couple of teams across the league that are like that, but Dallas being one of them, that sitting at 1-2, falling behind the way that they did, they're another team that the best things that they do defensively are be aggressive and pressure with Zimmer. Like that's his MO in his book, right?
Right.
And you have Micah Parsons as a pass rusher that is one of those pass rushers that you can negate if you choose to run the ball at him and be physical and throw a lot of bodies at him.
Right.
And you fall behind 14-3. Okay, throw everything that's the most redeemable qualities about what allows Micah Parsons to take over a game, throw it out the window. And you know they're going to run at your 220-pound linebackers.
Yep.
And I know Damon Clark's not 220 pounds, but that's been a question. The stoutness of their defensive interior. Odigizua showed a lot of promise as a penetration style player, but as far as like a anchoring at the point of attack and the linebackers getting in the right gaps, playing off the defensive tackles, it's not good.
You mentioned that this is a big play defense, right? They got pass rushers, they got ball hawks. What's the old saying, Kyle? You've been saying it a lot lately. It matters. You have to earn the right to rush the passer. You want to tee off, you want to attack the football in the air. Well, then, and if you're going to be a game script dependent team like that on defense, well, it only matters if you can stop the run. Structurally flawed operation in Dallas.
Yeah. What are the final thoughts do you have?
We got to talk about Colts Bears and Anthony Richardson versus Caleb Williams. Kyle, you see the talent. No,
we have to.
There's one thing I got to say here. You see the talent in both the players. There's no question. But watching that game and watching a lot of that game, I saw two really talented athletes I got to learn how to play the position, man. Got to learn how to play the position.
And this is, man, it's kind of the next wave in the evaluation of the position. It has become so glamorized, the ability to extend plays and outside of structure and second reaction playmaking ability. And it's no, for Richardson, it was reps. And for Caleb, it was discipline coming out, right? Caleb had the starts. He had the experience. It was the discipline of you got to really harness his ability and the discipline to do that. And for Richardson, he just needed more reps. Well, he didn't get the reps last year because he was hurt, unfortunately. He played in 2.5 games. And I think you see that with both of those guys. But a lot of the guys coming out, a lot of the guys that make the most plays in college football with all the extra space, with the hashes and the spread offenses and a lack of offensive line development, a lot of that is because that's how they are prompted to play there. And then you get here, and now with this kind of evolution of defenses to say, we're going to make you play patient and take profits, they don't want to do that. They want to make big plays. They want to throw the ball down the field. They want to extend. They want to hold the ball. Get outside the pocket. There's time and place for everything. But those guys are going to learn the lesson, and a lot of young guys are learning that lesson. Will Levis is learning that lesson. I think that's one of the only games we didn't really touch on all that much.
Yeah, I was going to make sure it was kind of the last thing we did here. A segue of thinking about Caleb Williams and Anthony Richardson, and even Will Levis. Think about all three of them. And then think about the idea of them getting a chance to work with Matt LaFleur and what he's been able to pull out of Malik Wilis under very unusual circumstances. And hat tip to Matt LaFleur. There's no question. This team at 2-1, a convincing win over Tennessee. But for him to be able to do it under these circumstances with Malik Wilis is very impressive coaching. So here's all the flowers in the world for you.
I think you can extend that to a couple of teams. I mean, what Kevin O'Connell is doing with Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Who's been a not successful NFL quarterback who had a lot of the same flaws coming out that we're talking about a lot of these young guys now, and has had to learn and play through it. And now getting into a structure that allows him to take profits and make plays, right? You look across, that's two backup quarterbacks that are playing high level, and what they're asked to do is maybe not as robust as what the full breadth of the playbook would have. But you contrast that to what Mike McDaniel's game plan was with the Dolphins yesterday. I use the word malpractice on the Dolphins postgame show. Skylar Thompson's been in your system for 3 years. And Bill Belichick said on Inside the NFL last week, you're going to miss in the draft, you're going to miss in free agency. You got to get your in-house evaluations right because you're with those guys every day. How you spent 3 years with Skylar Thompson and thought that you could just run the same playbook that you run with the player that you've tailored your entire offense to, who's out on IR for concussion. You scored 3 points, and you started 2 drives on the plus side of the 50 and 1 inside the 5. You got 3 points.
Yeah, I thought that the game script wasn't what it had to be. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Well, and
that's the thing with Mike over and over again is it's like, buddy, they keep score the whole game. You don't have to get it all right now.
Right.
And if he would just realize that and just kind of just played the game as opposed to living in that one moment, I think the Dolphins would be in a lot better position. But that's been the deal for 3 years now.
And that's the concern, right? Yeah. Is it's the same thing over and over. I mean, and it's the same things, but then the other stuff's regressing. Tim Boyle comes in and doesn't know the playbook, and you have to dumb it down, and they actually move the ball because you got rid of all the extra stuff. And it's like, all right, what can he run? All right, basic stuff. That should have been your game plan from the jump because there's a backup quarterback. I don't care how long he's been in the system.
Yeah, but and even when Tua has been available, when they do the basic things and tack the edges and get the ball to their playmakers in space and they stay patient when they're facing these 2 high shells, that's when the Dolphins are scary. It's like, thank you, Mike, for deviating from that and making it easier on this defense when you're blasting them up front when the run game. You're getting the explosives with yards after catch. But yeah, let's first and 10 chuck up a deep ball to not Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle.
And they did that against Seattle. I mean,
it's over and over again, man. I get it.
They had a number of chunk run explosive plays, one of them a whole back or explosive runs between the tackles, and they had Leonard Williams was out, Byron Murphy was out, Jerome Baker's out. It's like the entire defensive core is backup players, and you're blasting him, and you're like, nah, let's go take some shots.
It's over and over again, dude.
It's insanity. And that brings me to my last question. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Oh, boy.
You have to pick today. Name 5 teams who you think could be picking top 3 in the draft based off the first 3 weeks of the season.
Okay.
So you get five hacks at it to get the top 3.
This is fun. Tennessee.
Okay.
New England.
Yeah, a little bit of a sobering game on Thursday for them. We really didn't get a chance to talk about because we did the Friday show on Thursday before the game.
I think I can sum it up in one phrase. Aaron Rodgers leading the league in passing going into the weekend, you know.
Outrageous tweets from Jets media. You guys played an extra game.
I cannot, Kyle. I think Washington's still in this party.
So right now we have Tennessee, New England, Washington.
Yeah.
Need 2 more.
Denver.
You still think Denver's?
Yeah. Yeah. I think they caught a team at the right time. And then I got one more.
Yeah. I'm into there's some teams that have been kind of general consensus top 3 in mock drafts, multiple that have not been mentioned yet. So that's why I think it's interesting that we're doing this.
Man, I'm torn between a couple. I think I will land on the Panthers. The Panthers.
I was curious if you're going to leave the Panthers or the Giants out.
Panthers, Giants were teams that I was wrestling with. I thought about the Bears. Thought about the Colts. I mean, can your quarterback play that be this erratic for me to believe that you have an operation that I can believe in? I don't know, man.
And they're hurt on defense.
Right. So I guess those 5. Would you pick a different 5?
I can tell you, I did a playoff predictors.
Should have known. Should have known you had this ready to go.
I'll do it every week. Well, let's see. We had the Colts were in there for me.
I get it.
The Patriots were in there for me. The Commanders were in there for me. The Giants were in there for me. And then I had the Titans as well. I also had like bottom 8. I had Cleveland in there too.
Tough scene, man.
That could go really south. Dude,
they couldn't win that game at home against the Giants when they're gifted 7 points to start the game.
Correct.
Come on, brother.
They had, I think it was 24 yards on their first play, and then their next 25 plays had 30 yards of offense.
Tough. It was a tough watch.
Yeah. If we had to point out like the 3 teams that are in territory, it's Cleveland, it's Dallas, and it's Miami for me. Like, this can get off the rails pretty quick.
Yeah, early. I think Dallas probably in that. I don't know, man. They're getting their blasted by teams. Yeah, I like to think that like within the structure of their division that they'd have a chance, but yeah, it feels like it's kind of getting away from those teams. A lot of that injury driven, but long season, right? 3-6, 4, 2, 3-6 teams and a 4-7 team. Going to the playoffs last year.
Don't be the Browns and Dolphins and play in the AFC.
That's a tougher scene.
And hope that works out for you, because I don't think that game plan will go too well for you. But the game plans for both those teams didn't go too well yesterday anyway. So that's going to do it for us here on Locked On NFL Scouting with Kyle Crabbs. He is Joe Marino. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you list your favorite podcasts. Make it a great rest of your day. We are out of here.